Picture this. A doctor looks a man dead in the eye and tells him, if you keep doing this, your heart is going to stop, right there, behind the wheel. Most guys would have listened. Most guys would have hung up their helmet, taken the desk job, and lived out a quiet life telling stories about the good old days. This guy didn't do that. This guy kept a bottle of nitroglycerin pills in his pocket, popped them under his tongue mid-race just to keep his own heart from quitting on him, and then, once, his body finally forced him out of the driver's seat for good. He didn't retire. He went out and built the car that humiliated Ferrari. Not just beat them, humiliated them. On their own turf, in front of the whole world, at the one race that mattered more than any other. His name was Carroll Shelby. And if you've ever heard someone say Cobra or GT40 and felt a little chill run down your spine, this is the story of the man behind both of them. A man who was, medically speaking, not supposed to be alive to see any of it happen. Stick around, because by the end of this, you're going to understand why Ferrari, of all people, still doesn't like talking about 1966. And if stories like this, real stories about the men who built the machines we love, are your thing, subscribe now. If you're watching on a TV and don't see a subscribe button, grab your phone, search the channel name, and hit subscribe there. It costs you nothing, and it's the only reason I get to keep digging up stories like this one. The Texas kid who shouldn't have been a racer. Carroll Hall. Shelby was born in 1923 in a small town in Texas. Nothing about his childhood screamed future racing legend. He was actually a sickly kid. He had a heart murmur as a child, something doctors noted early on. Funny how that detail comes back around later in this story. He grew up, and like a lot of young men of his generation, World War II came knocking. Shelby became a flight instructor for the Army Air Forces. He never saw combat overseas, but he spent years teaching young pilots how to fly and how to survive doing it. That matters, because flying fast, dangerous machines, and understanding exactly how far you can push them before they kill you, that was basically training for the rest of his life. After the war, Shelby tried his hand at a bunch of things: oil drilling, dump trucking, and here's a detail people love once they hear it: chicken farming. Shelby actually started a chicken ranching business in Texas after the war. It didn't work out. Disease wiped out his flock and the business folded. So here's a man who at this point has failed at farming poultry, and somehow, within a few years, he's going to be one of the most respected names in motorsport on planet Earth. That's the thing about this story. It's not a straight line. It's a guy getting knocked down again and again, and getting back up in a completely different lane every time. In 1952, almost by accident, a friend asked him to drive a car in a race. He said yes, and it turned out this chicken farmer from Texas had a gift behind the wheel that almost nobody else on the track had: the rise and the first warning signs. Shelby didn't just dabble. He was fast, genuinely, dangerously fast. Within a few years, he was racing internationally, driving for top teams, going up against the best drivers Europe had to offer. He raced Maseratis. He raced Aston Martins. By the mid-1950s, Carroll Shelby was one of the most respected American drivers on the world stage, and that was rare. American drivers weren't exactly welcomed with open arms in European racing circles back then. Shelby earned his spot the hard way, by being faster than the guys who doubted him. But here's where it gets serious. Around this same period, Shelby started experiencing chest pain during races. Real chest pain, the kind that should stop a normal person cold. He was diagnosed with a heart condition, angina, which is basically your heart screaming that it's not getting enough blood flow. Usually a warning sign that something bigger could be coming. Any sane person hears heart condition and stop racing cars at 150 miles an hour in the same sentence and understands the assignment. Shelby heard it differently. He started carrying nitroglycerin tablets, the same medication used to treat angina and heart pain, and he would put them under his tongue during races when the pain got bad enough. Picture that for a second. He's strapped into a car with no roll cage worth mentioning, doing well over 100 miles an hour, wheel to wheel with the best drivers alive, and in between corners, he's medicating himself just to keep his own heart from failing before the finish line does. This wasn't a secret he hid forever, either. It became something of a legend in racing circles. The guy who raced with pills in his pocket because his heart couldn't keep up with his nerve. And in 1959, With that heart ticking away like a bomb, Shelby had the single greatest moment of his driving career. Le Mans, 1959, his last great drive. The 24 hours of Le Mans. If you don't follow racing, understand this. Le Mans isn't just a race, it's an endurance war. Cars and drivers go non-stop for a full day and night, through rain, through fog, through exhaustion that breaks most human beings. Cars die, drivers die. It has, historically, been one of the most dangerous events in all of motorsport. In 1959, Carroll Shelby was paired with British driver Roy Salvadori, both of them driving for Aston Martin in a car called the DBR1. Aston Martin had been chasing a Le Mans win for years and never sealed the deal. This was their shot. Shelby and Salvadori drove that car through the day, through the night, and back into daylight. And when the checkered flag finally dropped, they crossed the line first. Carroll Shelby, the guy with pills under his tongue to keep his heart beating, had just won the most brutal endurance race in the world. It's worth sitting with that for a second. This wasn't a sprint where adrenaline carries you for a few minutes. This was 24 hours of sustained stress, vibration, heat, and pressure on a body that his own doctors were already telling him couldn't handle it. And he didn't just finish, he won. But his body had a bill coming due, and it wasn't going to wait much longer to collect. The end of the road, and a new one opening by 1960. Carroll Shelby's heart condition had gotten bad enough that continuing to race wasn't just risky anymore, it was reckless, even by his own standards. He retired from driving. For most racers, that's the end of the story. You become a commentator, maybe a team manager, and people slowly stop mentioning your name at all. Shelby had other plans. Here's the thing about this man. He didn't just love driving cars. He understood cars at a level most drivers never bothered to reach. He knew what made a chassis behave, what made an engine actually usable in the real world versus just impressive on paper. And most importantly, he understood something nobody else in the industry seemed to get yet. That a lightweight European sports car with a big, torquey American V8 engine crammed into it could be an absolute weapon. There was a British car company called AC Cars, building a lightweight two-seater called the AC Ace. Great little chassis, nimble, beautifully balanced, but underpowered. It was running a small six-cylinder engine that just couldn't compete with what was coming out of Italy. Shelby had an idea. What if you took that AC Ace body and dropped a Ford V8 into it? He wrote to AC Cars, he wrote to Ford, and in 1962, in a rented corner of a Los Angeles shop, Carroll Shelby and a small team of mechanics built the very first Shelby Cobra. The Cobra is born. The math behind the Cobra was brutally simple, and that's exactly why it worked. Take a car that weighs almost nothing. The AC Ace body was tiny and light, somewhere around 2,000 pounds depending on the version, and bolt in a Ford small block V8 that could put out well over 250 horsepower. That's not a normal power-to-weight ratio. That's a slingshot with a windshield. The early Cobras, running the 260, and then the legendary 289 cubic inch Ford V8, could do something almost no other production sports car on earth could do at the time. They could out-accelerate a Ferrari, out-corner a lot of the competition, and do it all for a fraction of what a European exotic cost. Ferrari, at this point, had been the untouchable name in sports car racing for over a decade. The Ferrari 250 GTO in particular was considered the ultimate GT racing car. Beautiful, dominant, and basically unbeatable in its class through the early 60s. Shelby didn't build the Cobra to be pretty. He built it to be a problem for Ferrari. And it was. Throughout 1963 and into 1964, Shelby's Cobras started eating into Ferrari's dominance in GT racing. Not winning everything overnight, Ferrari was still incredibly strong, but showing up race after race and proving that an American V8 stuffed into a British body could genuinely run with the best cars Italy had ever built. Then Shelby's team took it a step further. They developed a closed-roof version called the Cobra Daytona Coupe, specifically engineered to be more aerodynamic so it could compete at the high-speed circuits where the open-top Cobra was losing ground purely due to wind drag. It worked. The Daytona Coupe was faster in a straight line and could actually run with and beat the Ferrari GTOs at the very top level of international GT racing. And in 1965, it happened. Shelby's Cobras won the FIA World GT Championship, the first time an American manufacturer had ever taken that title away from Ferrari. Let that sink in. A guy who'd been told his heart couldn't handle racing anymore had just built a car from scratch in a rented shop that dethroned Ferrari on the world stage. But he wasn't done, not even close, because there was one race Ferrari still owned completely, and Shelby was about to be handed the keys to go take that one too. The grudge that started it all. To understand what happens next, you need to understand a piece of history that a lot of people don't know about. The almost merger between Ford and Ferrari. Back in 1963, Ford Motor Company, under Henry Ford II, was in serious talks to actually buy Ferrari outright. Ferrari was a racing powerhouse, but was cash-strapped as a road car business, and Enzo Ferrari was reportedly open to selling, as long as he retained full control over the racing division. The deal got far enough along that lawyers were involved, terms were being drafted, and then, at the last moment, Enzo Ferrari found out that under the final terms, Ford would control the racing budget and racing decisions. Enzo Ferrari would not accept giving up control of his racing program to Detroit. He walked away from the table. Henry Ford II did not take that well. Reportedly, he took it as a personal insult, and he made a decision on the spot. Ford was going to build a car specifically to beat Ferrari at Le Mans. The race Ferrari had dominated for years. It wasn't just a business decision anymore. It was personal. It was a grudge match between an American auto giant and an Italian legend, and Ford had essentially unlimited money to make it happen. The result of that grudge was a car called the Ford GT40. The GT40 struggles, and Ford calls Shelby. Here's the part of the story most people skip over, because it makes Ford look bad, but it's essential to why Shelby matters so much here. Ford built the GT40 with some of the best engineering talent and the deepest pockets in the automotive world. On paper, it should have crushed everything. In reality, the early GT40s were a disaster. In 1964 and again in 1965, the GT40s entered Le Mans and other major endurance races and fell apart, literally. Transmissions failed. Suspensions cracked. Not a single GT40 finished the 1964 Le Mans race. It was an embarrassment, especially given how much money Ford had poured into the project specifically to beat Ferrari. Ford had the budget. Ford had the engineers. What Ford didn't have was somebody who actually understood how to turn a fast prototype into a car that could survive 24 brutal hours of racing without falling apart. So Ford did something that, in hindsight, is one of the smartest decisions in racing history. They turned the GT40 racing program over to Carroll Shelby and Shelby American. Think about the irony here. A massive corporation with nearly unlimited resources had to go hire a guy who built his first race-winning car with a small crew in a rented shop, because that guy actually understood what it took to win, not just what it took to look fast on paper. Shelby's team got to work re-engineering the GT40, fixing the reliability problems, improving the aerodynamics, and preparing the car, now fitted with a massive 7-liter Ford V8 in the Mark II version, to actually survive Le Mans, not just run fast for a few laps. Survive. Le Mans, 1966. The day Ferrari's streak died by 1966, Ferrari had won Le Mans 6 years running. 6. The prancing horse wasn't just good at Le Mans. It was considered the permanent, unbeatable king of that race. Nobody thought that was going to change anytime soon. Then, the 1966 24 Hours of Le Mans happened. Shelby's reworked GT40 Mark IIs, running that massive Ford V8, showed up not just competitive, but dominant. Ferrari's cars, by comparison, struggled with reliability that year. Ironically, the exact problem that had plagued Ford just 2 years earlier. Ford GT40s ran 1-2-3 at the finish, an absolutely crushing result. Ferrari, the team that had defined this race for the better part of a decade, didn't have a single car finish on the podium. It's hard to overstate how big a deal this was in the automotive world. This wasn't a close race that could be waved off as luck. This was Ford, guided by Carroll Shelby's team, completely dismantling Ferrari's dominance at the one event that mattered more to Enzo Ferrari's pride than any other. The grudge that started with a cancelled buyout in 1963 ended 3 years later, with Ferrari's own playground taken away from them, live in front of the entire world. And the man most responsible for turning that troubled, falling apart Ford prototype into a car capable of doing that the man whose fingerprints were all over both the Cobra program that dethroned Ferrari in GT racing and the GT40 program that dethroned them at Le Mans, was a Texas kid who'd been told a few years earlier that his heart might just stop if he kept pushing himself behind the wheel. He never drove a lap of that historic 1966 race. His racing career had ended years before. But make no mistake, that win belonged to him as much as it belonged to any of the drivers who crossed that finish line. Why this story still matters. Here's what gets me about Carroll Shelby's story. It's not really about cars, not at its core. It's about what happens when a door closes on you. A real, physical, medical door. The kind you can't argue with or push through by sheer will alone. And instead of sitting down and accepting it, you find a completely different way back into the fight. Shelby didn't sneak back into a race car and risk dying behind the wheel out of stubborn pride. He was smarter than that. He found a way to keep competing, keep winning, keep beating the best in the world through his mind, his engineering instincts, and his refusal to accept that Ferrari was simply untouchable. He proved that with the Cobra in 1965. He proved it again, even bigger, with the GT40 in 1966. And here's the detail that always gets me. This whole story, the Cobra, the GT40, the humiliation of Ferrari at their own race, none of it happens if Carroll Shelby's heart doesn't force him out of the driver's seat. If he'd stayed healthy, maybe he keeps racing for another decade, has a nice career, and retires as a well-respected name in vintage racing circles that only hardcore fans remember. Instead, his heart broke, and in the process, it built two of the most legendary badges in automotive history. Carroll Shelby lived until 2012. He actually received a heart transplant decades later in 1990 and kept working right up until the end, still involved with Shelby American, still putting his name on cars people dream about owning. So next time you see a Cobra at a car show, or you watch old footage of GT40s screaming down the Mulsanne straight at Le Mans, remember, that's not just a fast car. That's a man's answer to a doctor who told him he was finished. So that's the story. A chicken farmer with a bad heart who ended up building the car that ended Ferrari's Le Mans reign and did it with a bottle of pills in his pocket the whole way there. What do you think? Was 1966 really about revenge, or was it just business between two men who both refused to lose? Drop your take in the comments. I read every single one. If this is the kind of story you want more of, the people behind the machines, not just the specs on paper. Subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll see you on the next ride. Because trust me, there are stories out there just as crazy as this one still waiting to be told. And hey, if you like this one, go check out the video on the screen right now. It's another one you don't want to miss.